Hey guys, Joser here. Today we're going to be getting into a video I've been wanting to make for so long due to my love of the franchise and how it has affected my epic gamer life. My top 10 Zelda games. So this is probably going to be one of the hardest rankings I could possibly make. However, I feel the need to look at the games individually and assess what really makes the game special to me is crucial for the ranking. I also feel it should be stated that these are my opinions about the series, and in no way am I saying this is an objective list, just my top 10 favorite Zelda games. Also, obvious spoiler warning, so without further ado, let's start with number 10. So this may be a shocker to some people, as this is the first Zelda game released that truly stands up to the Zelda title in my opinion. I've decided to put A Link to the Past here, as even though it is a fantastic game with great music, dungeons, and overall level design, it never really felt like a true Zelda game to me. I think one of the factors of this is that I love characters in video games and media more than the overall story. For example, I would rather play a game like Persona 5 or Mother 3 over an open world RPG like Skyrim where there's much more to do but the characters are more washed out and bland. Side note aside, I do really enjoy A Link to the Past, however, I feel it is held back in my eyes not because of how it crafts its dungeons and world, but how it was limited by the time the game was released. Ooh, I know some people are going to get a little triggered about this one. With the hype for Breath of the Wild when it was announced in 2014, it was stated that it would redefine what it means to be a Zelda game, and allow for a much more open world experience akin to games like The Witcher or Skyrim. Now this got people so excited for this game, and I was too. But I just thought to myself, as long as they don't mess up the dungeons or the story, this is gonna be a masterpiece. Fast forward to March 2017 when Breath of the Wild was finally released and I get my hands on the game. Man, from the moment Link got up from the shrine, I said to myself, this is gonna be a good one. The Great Plateau masterfully incorporated getting the Sheikah Slate abilities into the initial 4 shrines, and I thought that this creativity would be further expanded upon as the game continued, and as soon as you get the glider from the King of Hyrule, you jump off the plateau and hop into the huge world that Breath of the Wild has. For some people, this was an amazing feeling to just explore and find whatever they wanted to do. However, I found myself being driven more to the objectives the game provides. Along the way, you encounter different enemies and environments that were all so varied and interesting, especially Zora's domain, but as I sank my teeth into the game, I noticed that a few things were missing. First of all, music has always been a huge part of Zelda games, and even though the ambient music in Breath of the Wild suits the atmosphere, it just doesn't work for me personally. I want music to get stuck in my head that I can jam out to whenever it is played. And the other major problem that I found was the lack of dungeon variety and puzzles. The 4 divine beasts all have the same visual look, with slight changes to the overall design of the dungeon, and then they all lead up to the boss of the dungeons, which, spoilers if you haven't played the game, are all the fucking same. Anyway, I feel like I could talk about Breath of the Wild for hours, but I should move along with the list. My closing thoughts of the game were that it was a great game, but not a great Zelda game. Minish Cap is a weird one for me. I absolutely loved the Game Boy Advance, and it has been my all-time favorite console ever since I got mine when I was around 5 or 6. Despite this, I never got to play the Minish Cap until much later in my life, when I was around 12 to 13. I had played many Zelda games prior to this, but none on my favorite console. When I played Minish Cap, I soon realized how good of a game it was. The start is fairly slow until you get to the first dungeon, where the game starts to really pick up. My favorite part of the game, I would say, was being able to shrink down to the size of a Picori, the tiny race that lived throughout the world, and explored the world as if you were the size of a bug. This game also featured lots of good music, even if most of the tracks were remixes from older Zelda games, but I feel they added to the game's overall feel. Not to mention, Ezlo is also a very interesting character that I didn't find annoying like other Zelda sidekicks. At the start of the game, he was just using Link to help him as he had been turned into a bird thing. Throughout the game though, he became a friend and ally to Link, helping him along his journey and helping him save his childhood friend, Princess Zelda. Also, I bought this hat, so that's cool. Now this is where the rankings start to get really hard for me. The next 7 Zelda games are some of my favorite games of all time, and they each hold a special place in my heart. Basically, this is where the top 10 becomes more of a top 7. This is where much more of my personal experiences start to influence the rankings. I've chosen to put an underrated Zelda game here, Link's Awakening, which was released on the Nintendo Game Boy and later the Game Boy Color. Also, it just got announced for a Switch remix, so that's pretty cool. I first played this game around the same time I played Minish Cap, when I was around 12 or 13, and it quickly became one of my favorites at that time. Even though the game was short, this allowed it to pack all its great ideas and concepts into a more compact and great experience. One of my favorite memories of this game is discovering that you can juke out the shopkeeper and steal items from him without having to spend any rupees on them. When I did this, I thought I was so cool, because using my skill, I cheated the system and got an item for free. Little did I know that when I went back into the shop to steal more items, the shopkeeper is waiting there ready to blast you with a mega death laser that causes a game over. This is one of those touches that breathes personality into the characters despite being held back by technical limitations like A Link to the Past was. Anyway, Link's Awakening will always hold a special place in my heart as one of my favorite Zelda games. A Link Between Worlds being a more recent game was a pleasant surprise as it added a bunch to A Link to the Past without altering the game completely. I think by far the best part about this game is how masterfully the game incorporates the merge mechanic into the gameplay and puzzles. For those who don't know, in A Link Between Worlds, Link gains an ability that allows him to become a painting on a wall, allowing him to walk on walls and around various surfaces to add a 3D element to an otherwise 2D game. Another great aspect of this game was allowing the user to enter the Dark World, similar to A Link to the Past, by going into the crack things positioned around the map. This allows for a huge world with a massive variety of dungeons and routes. People talk about how good this game is due to the openness you have about going through the game, which I agree with. However, I feel the game does this while still feeling like a Zelda game, unlike Breath of the Wild. Also, let me just say that MINISH are probably my favorite collectible in any game. I mean, look at them. Here is a rather controversial Zelda game to put so high on the list, being Skyward Sword. The Zelda community has very mixed opinions of this game, ranging from either absolutely hating the game to absolutely loving the game. I am more on the loving side of the spectrum, as you can tell by how far up the list is, and how it broke the top 7. The main mechanic of the game is the most controversial part of the game, the motion controls. Nintendo took the challenge of incorporating one-to-one swordplay into the game, allowing the player to feel as though they are actually swinging the sword. In my experiences, this worked for the most part, only acting up a very limited number of times, but when it worked, whew, it was awesome. Picture 11-year-old me swinging my Wii remote like I was Link. Throughout my childhood, I would always play games with my friends where we would be video game characters that would go on adventures, and Skyward Sword evoked that childhood feeling for me, fulfilling my want to become Link. Despite its repetition of areas, this is why Skyward Sword is specifically special to me. Big surprise here for some people. This game. Holy shit, man, this game. This is by far the most underrated Zelda game, and I have no idea why. The dungeons are intricately designed, the Tower of the Gods fixes most of the problems with the Temple of the Ocean King from Phantom Hourglass, and the music is fire! This game also incorporated the train mechanic, which in my opinion is the best transportation-based mechanic we've ever got in Zelda. Like, come on man, you get to ride a train. The game also finally actually incorporates Princess Zelda as a functioning character, and as your companion throughout the game. Yeah, she's kinda dead though. This allows you to capture phantoms in the Tower of the Gods and just expand Zelda as a character. Also, the collectibles in this game are rabbits, so yeah, that's pretty cool, man. First things first, the HD version of this game looks so fucking crispy, man. The cel-shaded graphics mixed with the lighting makes it look so clean. Anyway, visuals aside, the game always fascinated me and was the game I always wanted to play as a kid, but couldn't due to not owning a GameCube. I used to spend hours on YouTube just watching the same video of Hyrule Castle and getting the Master Sword, and it just mesmerized me. In 2011-ish, I bought a GameCube and was finally able to experience the game, and it was great. Being able to fully explore the ocean and all the islands scattered around was just as fun as the dungeons and puzzles. You never got bored in this game because there's always so much to do and so much to find. The final thing I want to discuss about this game is the look of the water. I don't know why, but I have always appreciated the look of water in video games and media, and plan to discuss it in a future video. But anyway, the Wind Waker water, despite being an ocean and therefore being salty, makes me want to drink it. This game is so weird, man. It doesn't stick to the usual Zelda formula by shrinking the amount of dungeons to only 4, which I feel aren't even that good, and instead puts more emphasis on the characters and side quests. The game revolves around a 3-day cycle where the fucking moon is about to fall and blow up and kill everyone, and you are tasked to stop said moon from falling. To do this, you gotta get Majora's Mask back from the Skull Kid, which was stolen from probably the creepiest character in Zelda, the Happy Mask Salesman. Just going through the world and witnessing all of the people begin to accept that they're going to die is not only chilling, but also depressing. But despite the darker feel of the game, it also maintains its whimsical world where there are singing frogs and a milk bar. The strongest part of this game for me is the quest of collecting all the masks, which is so enjoyable and allows you to experience the stories of numerous characters and learn more about the world. And another thing that takes this game from a 9 to a solid 10 out of 10 is the stone mask because it looks funny. Alright guys, and my favorite Zelda game is Ocarina of Time. This game is so good, man, with the world and the characters. Nah guys, I'm fucking with you. Number 1 on this list is Twilight Princess. If you know me, this comes as no surprise, because not only is this my favorite Zelda game, but also my favorite game of all time. I played this game when I was like 7, and it was my first experience with the Zelda franchise, and I have been in love since. I would spend hours every night playing through the game with my dad, and it was so magical. We were so slow, it took us like 2 months to beat the game. But I don't even understand why I love this game so much, but I think it just comes down to the point that this is the game in the series that captures what it means to be a Zelda game for me. This game was so theatrical, and it played a magnificent story, focusing mainly on its characters, which are some of the best in the series. The dungeon design in this game is also, in my opinion, the best in the entire series, masterfully incorporating combat and puzzles throughout, and always ending in an epic cinematic boss fight. I mean, you get to ride a fucking Beyblade through half of a dungeon and then use it to kill a giant skeleton monster, so I think that validates my point. I could probably go on for hours, but I want to talk about the best part of the game for me, being my favorite character in the entire series, Midna. She assists you throughout your journey, but isn't just a useless tutorial character that tells you how to play the game. She instead is a fleshed out character with her own motivations and personality. She first finds you when you first became a wolf and busts you out of jail, and simply wants to use you to save a race of Twilight from being slaves to the antagonist of the game, Zant. She initially just wants to save the Twilight Realm and doesn't care about the Light Realm at all, but throughout your journey she learns that the Light Realm is just as important as the Twilight Realm, and the people that live there are just as important as her Twilight. I believe the strongest and most emotional part of this game is when Midna is attacked by one of the light spirits that was controlled by Zant, and she becomes fatally ill. You then, stuck as a wolf, have to run as fast as you can all the way to Hyrule Castle to try and save her before she dies. While you're running, probably the best song in the entire game, Midna's Lament, plays, which only adds to the heart-wrenching moment. This part of the game is probably the most emotional moment in the entire series for me, and it only improves on Midna's character. Well guys, that's gonna wrap up my list, but I would love to hear your guys' personal favorite Zelda games as well. I have plans to make more videos like this in the future, so make sure to subscribe to stay up to date with that. Also, make sure to check out my Twitch channel as I pretty much stream daily and play a large variety of games, including Zelda games. Anyway guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.